There's more to learn than we actually know. There's a huge amount of knowledge even really clever people don't know about.
What about you? What's making your life interesting?
Trying to make people think a bit more, basically, right through all the age groups, so that they don't accept something just because they're told to accept it, that they're curious about things. Or from a tiny child, I would try to put things right that were wrong, which my family called mischief. But I had to do these sort of things, and they've got bigger as I've got older. The issues have got bigger. It isn't now a matter of clearing a ditch or a drain in the field. It's presenting a subject to a wide audience and trying to get people to think about it, basically.
What do you want people to think about?
What I see is either wrong or could be made a lot better if only there was more thought applied to it. It's particular, as you know, about the 0 to 5 child group, where people are quite unconsciously damaging their children because they simply don't know the responsibilities of being a parent.
And so though you're not a parent right now to a small child, you still care and you still think you have something to offer.
Yes, indeed. I had experience, as you know, with my own son. I was the second child, I was the second son, I was the second rater in my family. It didn't damage me, I don't think, that much, but it certainly irritated from time to time. And I employed at one stage 25 young women as outworkers in the toy business, and I saw how they were bringing their children up. There could have been some improvements there, let me tell you.
You are somebody who's trying to make a difference in the lives of others, about children, upbringing, religions, so many things. When you were a child, would people have said, oh, that one there, that Frederick, he's going to be the one to care about the world, or would people have sort of suspected that you would go on to do this instead of leading just a ordinary pottering about life?
Excellent question, because in my childhood I had rheumatic fever when I was about 5 and a bit. It made me very skinny and very emotional, nervous if you like. I cried easily. And I was also full of mischief. And in the village, I lived in a small village, I was always out and about. And people who were second cousins to my father or just friends of my father seemed more than a little bit interested in me. And I passed the 11 plus at 10 and a half, not 11 and a half. And it wasn't until I was 60 that I found out that the school had actually told my parents that I was special. 60. So had I known that at a much earlier age, it could have significantly affected which direction I went in. I was a bit angry about it, but not vindictive. I just thought, well, why did they do it? The focus was so much on my brother because he failed the 11 plus. And they wanted to, I guess, even the playing field and not spoil one child at the expense of the other. And I found out that from my cousin that my mother actually went to the school and asked why Fred had passed and Len had failed. And it was 10 years ago, under 10 years ago, that I dated a special needs headmistress who had received the MBE for her work in education. And I told her that I had been offered not one place, but 3 places, one of them in another county. And she just looked at me and said, Frederick, to be offered a place in another county meant you were in the top 3% of that year exam results. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about this.
Did you take any of those places?
Did I?
Take any of those 3 places in any of those?
Yes, I went to the Sudbury Grammar School, the finest grammar school education. All me and my classmates with whom I'm still in contact after all these years, we think it was the most wonderful thing that happened to us. Mm-hmm. Don't forget, you see, we were farm labourers' sons. Would you look at me and think I was a farm labourer's son now?
And you haven't lived that life because you had an education.
Yeah, the education and the gloriously happy first 5 years prior to the illness in my childhood gave me the resilience to, almost as my ex-wife said, I was indestructible. It takes a lot to knock Frederick over.
If we go ahead, so in other words, early on there was some recognition of your giftedness, though not from your parents,
No.
but from school you were recognized as gifted.
Yeah.
If somebody had met you at 15, 20, was it that coming out? And did you have an interest in beyond the everyday 9 to 5 or whatever it was?
And no specific interest. I didn't really buy into doing it. And I did it for the wrong reason. I went into banking because my father had been scrupulously honest all his life, and he finished up not very well off. And I thought, well, I will use that honesty in the profession that most encourages it, banking. But after about 4 or 5 years, including 2 years in national service, I realised I wanted to go and have a look at the world, so I went and joined an overseas bank. And I did have a look at the world.
At what point in your life would you say that you started actively wanting to live more or think more than just, I've got a job, maybe a wife and child, etc.? When did you want to go more? Because you've gone way beyond that now.
At age 21, I was in charge of the foreign till at the Westminster Bank in Cambridge. And we had an inspirational manager, well, inspiration to me anyway, and he gave me the worst report that I've ever had in my life. And the next year he gave me the best report I've ever had in my life, because he kind of took me under his wing and made me feel important and told me I had to look smarter, get my hair cut, and da-da-da, all of which I did. And he didn't wait from December to December. I can remember him now, at the end of March, he hooked his arms over the top of my counter, you know, the glass partition, and he looked at me and said, "Webb, I'm very pleased with what you've done." And from then on, I passed some banking exams and finished up with a degree in banking. So that was just the first real bit of encouragement I'd had, I think. Since then I've met many people who have become very good friends, and they're certainly not grammar school boys. Many of, you know, there was an old Etonian, a doctor of philosophy from St Andrews University, various people kind of believed in me. And in Dubai, my friend offered me the lead role in Bill, Book and Candle, with knowing full well I'd never been on the stage. And I get to Bahrain about 2 years later, and the producer at the British Council wants me to play the lead role in the Ruling Class. It's a play where some guy thinks he's Christ.
So at that point you're recognized as somewhat, you've got talents, lots of talents that you hardly suspected or didn't suspect, but now you're actually gone in all kinds of unusual directions. Toy making, you're very interested in religion, you're interested in how we bring up children and tools for children. How did all that develop, and where are you now?
Well, it all, I've got a sort of restless nature, and having seen, and I lived a long time on my own and had a lot of time to reflect on what I read in the papers, I read an awful lot of books when I was out in the Middle East. All the classics I read, that I think I did anyway. And the world kind of opened up, and all of a sudden I thought, I live in this world, what can I do about the things I'd like to see improved? And that's the seed of the thing, and virtually everything I looked at, I wanted to have a go at. And it wasn't religion that I was interested in, it was the way that God is presented by religions, and I don't think he's presented in a way that's, in years gone by, it was necessary to call him a big bloke with a white beard, but now that we know all about the universe, etc., we can surely move off into something less definite and more like the Force in Star Wars, that there is a benign force that we can somehow or other connect with through meditation, in my view.
And you're trying to spread this with books and writings. What are you trying to do, and how far are you trying to get?
Well, it would be... let me take the example of the 0 to 5 children. If I went, the slogan of Lord Grip, the big bulldog character, one of his sayings is, "This is serious." And if I walk past a playground before I die sometime, and a little child looks at another one and says, "This is serious," boy, will that give me somewhat of a kick. And the second thing is that in the midst of this writing, nearly all kids need a hero. And if in the midst of my writing, something in it gives any child that hero that stops it from being as damaged as some children I've met, in some cases perhaps changing the course of that child's life, that's really what I'm after. I'm not after making money out of some soppy mishmash of dinosaurs. I really want to send a message to the little kids and their parents that can make some changes for the better. That's basically. When it comes to the wild books like My Knees Are My Children and the Bruise of the Cat, this is just taking a off-the-wall look at life, creating humour out of nothing without being nasty and without damaging anybody. It's just pure fun, and I love doing that.
So you'd really like it if your character, his famous line, "This is serious," is something that was echoed on playgrounds by children.
Yeah.
And you'd love to have a positive impact. What kind of impact could you see it having on children? In what way? And what about parents? What would you like for parents?
I think there's when two young people have a baby, it's obviously new to them. They certainly don't always know what to do. I certainly didn't. But if you can get the love and the encouragement so that the child feels both of those, and the affection, plus the sort of honesty and the manners and the ability to share, if you can put that into a family which didn't have it before, then I think the children of those families will multiply that when their parents, and civilization itself will suddenly realise that it isn't all about making money. There are many, many more wonderful things. There's a quote from Dr. Johnson that we are here for higher purposes than mere praise or reward, and I sincerely believe that.
One of the first things I read from you had to do with pinkness.
Yeah.
And I see you're wearing a kind of pinky shirt, and
I
your jeans are kind of pinky. Would you like to tell people a bit more about your vision of a benign religion?
I would indeed. At certain times in my life, things have happened that shouldn't have happened, that they were unusual. I had a sense that there was something, some indefinable something, either kind of getting as much fun out of something as I was, or looking askew at something as I was. And one evening I was in bed in my flat house in Suffolk, and I was looking at the stars, and I realised the curtains were drawn and I couldn't see out but the stars. And this happened and still happens, that I seem to be able to project my mind through the ceilings, and the vastness of space is in front of me in my mind. And within that vastness of space, I believe there is something from a Clifford D. Simak science fiction, this huge pink blancmange of affection for the universe, for all life in the universe. And I sound silly, but I like the idea so much. I imagine, and it is my imagination, that I'm talking to this entity. And as I imagine I'm talking to him, so the idea has grown, and I actually believe that I'm bouncing a conversation off from one part of my brain to another. If it's some force, external force, which is, I don't rule it out, but there's something that I absolutely love doing, and on occasions I simply lie warm in bed and bathe in all this nothingness that means something to me. It doesn't make sense, but this is how I feel about the Pinkness. It's a wonderful entity.
So it sounds as if you feel connected to a very loving presence.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And it's a personal connection, and if you're looking askance, it's looking askance, and there's a closeness.
Yeah, it doesn't happen in my day-to-day life, although I have had times, one or two, when I've had to pull the car into a lay-by, but that was not so much the Pinkness, that was a sense of having seen something, had an experience that I needed to stop driving a motor car and concentrate on what had just happened. And then after 10 minutes I could drive off. I can only remember one of them now, but more than one has happened.
Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I drew a picture of Moody Ruby, which is a witch that flies on a vacuum cleaner. It's on my website. And there was an artist, a very good artist, who lived in a village with an American former RAF man from Millwall. And she was very Suffolk. She liked old things. And she had a dog that bit everyone and was very vicious. And she was ever so anxious that the dog didn't attack me. And she put me in her living room and said, you'll be perfectly all right here. Big Suffolk accent, perfectly all right here. And she dashed about outside for about 10 or 15 minutes and came in and said, she's about to say, well, I can't find him. And she looked at the lounge seat, and there was a black dog on that seat sound asleep, which was her vicious dog. And she was astounded that the dog was there asleep. And she asked, did he attack you? I said, no, he wandered in. I said, hello boy, patted him on the head, he wagged his tail, and he went over there, and he's been asleep ever since. And she was so amazed at this that I talked to her for about another half an hour, but every 10 minutes she said, I can't believe he didn't attack you. And somehow the dog and the dog knew that it didn't want to attack me. It was perfectly like a good friendly dog. And that made me stop in the lay-by on the way home, because the other things she said to me, she said, the picture is the story. It's all there. And she also had done a drawing of Winston Churchill, a great fan of Winston Churchill, and she said, it took me ages to draw his bottom lip. You got it right, incidentally, but it took her ages. She was lovely.
Thank you. How much effort are you putting into spreading your sense of the cosmos or this cosmic force, or how important is this to you?
It's important to me, but if you try to spread something of that nature, you immediately are labelled a religious nutter, which I most certainly am not. I might be a nutter, but I'm not a religious nutter. Any time people are confronted with something they don't understand, it seems to me they want to push it aside. They almost feel embarrassed that you're waking their brains up. And so I tend to say things in jest about my Plumtree Faith, as I call it, rather than actually say that it matters to me as a serious thing.
So in other words, it's serious to you, but you're not working at spreading it.
Apart from putting it in the Plumtree Faith book, and I wouldn't sort of, if I were interviewing, I mean, you're interviewing me now and I'm telling you about it, so I'm not afraid to talk about it. But the audience that I would normally get, I don't think are ready. I think one day the religions will all collapse because someone else other than me is going to find out or experience what I experience, and it's going to hit them like a tidal wave. I really think that's what's going to happen.
My sense is that more and more people do have kind of individual connections with the cosmos in various extents. And I think it's very good for those people to connect up with each other. But I have no desire to push anyone to do something outside of what is comfortable for them. And it sounds like what is comfortable for you is to have your own experience of faith and the cosmos.
Yeah. I'm happy with it. I feel uncomfortable in the church now. I feel I'm witnessing some sort of. I might as well be at Stonehenge, and watching the Druids do whatever they did. I feel that I've grown out of the church and went to the thunderbolts with the ceiling, but I don't think it's going to happen.
But you haven't grown away from a sense of connection with the cosmos or a sense of spirituality, especially a sense of connection with some other force.
No, I had an out-of-body experience after my first knee was transplanted. And I was looking down at myself from a corner of the ceiling. And I thought, you shouldn't be down there, Frederick. You shouldn't be up here, Frederick. You should be down there. I wasn't frightened, I was curious. And I said to myself, scratch your chest. So I scratched my chest. And the instant I scratched my chest, I was back in the bed with my body. Now this, in the light of my conversation with the Pinkness, this certainly increased my desire to try and connect. But what it did was it kind of removed my fear of death, because I was quite distinct from my body. And I know that when people are declared dead, or say they drown, their body is in perfect working order except their lungs filled with water. Get the water out of their body, restart them. Impossible. Why? They're dead. Their soul has left that body. And therefore, when you die, my belief is that that soul disappears from earth and it finishes up in the land or on the planet nearest to the planet of your dreams. And I've written a poem called Dreams. So as thoughts can travel in an instant to anywhere in the universe, by this theory, it's possible for you to die on planet Earth in the Milky Way and your soul can instantly re-emerge on a planet any number of light years away from Earth. But I wouldn't be able to say this may be what happens, maybe have happened to us. It may be the reason we get precognition. We feel we've been here and done something before. Maybe we have a part of a dead soul from another planet in the universe, and we're not supposed to recognise it because we're supposed to live our own lives. But that's possibly a way of where the soul finishes up. Souls could be indestructible and merely shift around the universe. Possibly.
Mm-hmm. Anyhow, this is part of a very interesting ongoing exploration of religion, spirituality, not trying to put an answer that you know for sure that this is what happens, but it's your own impression, and it's quite a difference from whatever beliefs you had as a child.
Oh yes, yeah.
And as I started by saying, it ain't over till the fat lady sings, so I don't know where you'll be in 10 years. If you had, just take a moment. Imagine you're 10 years in the future. What might you love to see for yourself?
I would like my writing and my idea of a kind of English Disney to have been established in Britain, paying British taxes, and for the writing that I have and illustrations that would have made little children think, and some of them would by their own. The thing is that when people change and believe that they caused the change, when they don't, when it's not accountable to any particular thing, as with myself, I'm saying I've met some glorious people, I've had mentors, as it were, but it's what I took from those quite glorious people who are with me in my mind very frequently. It's what I took from them that has made me have all these ideas and beliefs that I think keep me young. They certainly keep my brain active. And if I could, if this sort of new idea of thinking could somehow be attributed to me, that would be glorious. That would be glorious.